Hey everyone, welcome back to DevTalks, where we dig into all things AI. My name is Karen Bizaturlo, and I'm on the developer relations team here at PayPal. Today, we're exploring how AI agents are changing the game for developers, especially in fintech and payments. We'll dive into how agent first development is evolving the software lifecycle, what skills developers need in order to adopt to this evolution, and the opportunities and challenges we're seeing here at PayPal. So, with us today, we have Hemanth. He's a senior engineering manager at PayPal. Welcome, Hemanth. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what are you focused here on at PayPal?
Hey, thank you for having me here, Karin. I'm Hemant. I'm a senior engineering manager here at PayPal. Have been with PayPal for almost a decade. Started off my journey with merchants activities, then insights and reporting, and spent some time on merchants, and also was with Braintree for some brief period of time. And then I was with Checkout. And currently, I'm in the core AML team here at PayPal. We're exploring everything AI.
It sounds like you have a really awesome breadth of knowledge. You've worked on a lot of products at PayPal and you've been here for a while. So I'm really excited to learn more about your take on how agent first development is changing how you and your teams are building and moving forward. So let's dig into it. So to you, what is agent first development? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before we talk about agent first development, I think we should stick to a definition of what an agent is, and and everyone has their own set of definition of what an agent is. So let's kind of define agent as an entity that kind of has an ability to think and decide and use set of tools um, in the given context and respond back with meaningful information. Why did we even get here, right? Like if we step back, maybe say 5 years, I don't want to go back too long in the history where we're talking about actor model and such. But say when LLMs were kind of getting introduced in general to general public in terms of chat interfaces, and people were having conversation with LLMs, and they kind of asked, hey, what is the time right now, or what's the weather like here in San Francisco? um, the LLM wouldn't probably get the latest information because it had a cutoff knowledge, and then came in tool calling and function calling, where models could kind of make calls to certain set of APIs and kind of decide what tool to use and come back with a meaningful information. But then it needed standardization. That's where MCP came in, and kind of things evolved from there, right? And all the agentic flows started happening. So with this definition of agent, let's kind of define what agent first is. Agent first is a paradigm shift where, compared to the classic software development cycle or the product development cycle, where agent is the first class citizen, we are not bringing in agent at the end of the loop here and trying to say, hey, now I have a working software or a working system. How do I make it agentic in nature? Versus we say, hey, as we design and decide on how our system should behave, we will keep agent as the first class citizen. So things revolve around it. There are again two parts to it. We have maybe the process in which the software is developed where agents are used, and an agentic system in itself which is developed. Happy to explore more as we discuss about these.
Yeah, no, I think you're starting to already answer like my next kind of couple of questions. So, when we're talking about agent first kind of mindset, how do we design software? Like what's changed compared to the traditional models?
Yeah, it's kind of funny we are already calling this as traditional models, but as we stand today, I would say agent or LLM based assistance has been helpful throughout in the SDLC like path, right? So if you look into the mental model shift of um, product managers kind of mocking up and making a quick repo on how that idea should look like using LLM assistance, and coding a live application and sharing the URL saying that, hey, this is how I envision the product to be, to developers taking that vision and kind of productionizing it. LLM assistance is there helping developers product and throughout this cycle, right? So from an idea to prototype, from prototype to delivery to production, um, the velocity is high. Yes, from idea to prototype it is super fast, but from prototype to production is where we still need to kind of find different patterns, and because it's complex, right? It sometimes involves legacy, involves multiple teams and complex structures whenever we're talking in an enterprise scale. So we need to figure out ways on how we can use agents here to make life better, right? That's one aspect of the process where we're using agents to help us not only in terms of design, but also in terms of code review, generating the code. Think of it as more like a buddy who's sitting next to you and you're like having a conversation and saying, hey, is this idea good? Let's kind of bounce ideas. Let's kind of create code. Like I was giving this analogy that, hey, just because I take good pictures or my handwriting is great, it doesn't mean that my camera is good or my pen is great. Yeah, yes, it matters a bit, but it all boils down to the amount of effort that an individual has put in, probably improving their handwriting or thinking of how do I frame this picture? How does the lighting look like? Is everything good? So this comes from experience. So number of times that an individual has burnt their finger in production, kind of those lessons that they have learned, the scar marks that they have would influence a lot on how they're using these LLMs to kind of have a conversation and produce what they want, right? The quality and the velocity. If this was just all the process, the second set of agent first is in terms of product, right? Whenever we are designing a product, we want to make it like an agent first. So what I mean by agent first in a product is, say, in the traditional sense, if we could say, is we would probably have these layers where I say, hey, there is the UI UX layer where the user interacts, and then I have probably have a like a mid-tier layer which talks to some services, and these are a set of APIs which then talks to finally a data source or a database. So this is like the normal flow, right? And then we say, hey, let me try to bring in the AI layer here, and how do I make it agentic in nature? Versus I say, hey, when I'm designing my APIs, I would design in a fashion so that it is consumed by an agent. I know this API will be consumed by an agent and not by a human who is using an SDK to kind of do the development. So starting from there to the entire process, we make sure that the data, the API, the design, everything is catered to an agent. And then it could be like human in the loop, where the human is kind of giving a feedback and saying, hey, this is not right, I accept this is good, or having a conversation. Or it could be human on the loop. That's like human is just monitoring the agents and saying, okay, things are going good, why is this agent not behaving, and things like that, right? So the agent first could be both in terms of the regular development versus developing an agent in itself, using agents for your development, which can in turn result in an agent that gets deployed, right? So we have agents helping in both directions.
Gotcha. And so, what are the key traits of agent first systems? Like you talked a little bit about there being differences of agent first versus, traditional in the traditional sense. So, what key traits are you seeing?
So let's think of this as a spectrum at the very left, where we have everything done by a human, and human comes and interacts with the system. Say, for example, they're buying a product and doing a checkout, right? They would
Mhm.
come search for whatever they want to buy. I want to buy a shoe because I'm going on hike to Yosemite. I can figure out and search and try to find the color that I want, the size that I want. I pick the shoe, add it to the cart, check out, like add my card and all of it. And so this is like completely like human driven, right? Maybe we move a bit towards the mid of the spectrum. It's more like you're having a conversation with a bot and asking it for, hey, give me some suggestions based on my like previous transactions. You know my shoe size, know my shoe color, and you want to kind of the bot, the LLM, basically the agent is basically helping you to figure out what is the good match for your query, whatever you're trying to buy. To the very right, it might be completely autonomous, where the agent is figuring out and saying that, hey, you've been using this shoe for a while, and it's old, you want to replace this, I've ordered few shoes. Or maybe the very extreme right of it, where you think of an order and the agent is going to place it for you, and you like it, you use it, otherwise you just return it, right? So so it can be the spectrum of use cases, and the design kind of varies in each of these. uh, but thinking of APIs and interactions as such, right? As I was talking previously, we said, hey, when you're designing a system, you are thinking of agent first. Now, what does it mean again to be in this use case, for example, is when I'm trying to buy a product, or maybe I'm trying to book my flight tickets, right? Or I'm asking the agent to kind of plan a trip for me. So there are multiple use cases like this, right? So it is not just taking your existing APIs and wrapping it over an MCP and letting the agent or an LLM make a call to MCP and figure out what needs to be done. It's not just that. It's about thinking from the agent first on the API design itself, saying that, hey, if this API is consumed by an agent, how can I make it better? Say, for example, today, if there is some error, we throw a 5xx or a 4xx to the user and then show a generic error message, or show probably retry and specific error messages based on the sensitivity of data, right? But we know for sure this API is consumed by an agent, and sometimes the agent might be internal, sometimes it might be public facing. We can make the error response and the metadata, everything that is needed for the agent more verbose, so the agent knows what it should do next, and it becomes a bit deterministic, right? You can also have a workflow and make it more deterministic in nature, right? It's the making systems more deterministic with agents is a challenge in itself, and this can't be always accurate. There might sometimes be hallucinations and stuff, but it can get very close if we design it with agent first approach, making sure, starting from our interfaces, how should they look, how should they behave, to our APIs, to our data, everything catering to agent. It makes life better, and that's the interesting aspect, and that's where we are as we stand today, and it's evolving at a very rapid pace, and things keep changing. There are a lot of protocols that are popping up, a lot of design patterns that are being discovered, so it's a very interesting space to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine too, like, it's, evolving the developer role where, you're speaking about a system that can reason on its own. And so, how do requirements gathering, testing, and iteration change when a system can reason on its own?
Yeah, there are like two school of thoughts here saying that, can systems really reason, or like, should we rethink reasoning? I would let you folks kind of explore and see what you feel about the reasoning aspect there. But it's kind of evolving, right? Say, as we stuck to the definition of an agent, we said, hey, agent has context, agent has set of tools, probably has access, of course, has access to internet and stuff, and it can decide which tool to use. If you call that as reasoning, yes, the agent is kind of reasoning, but it's thinking versus reasoning, right? Is As one of the classic examples that Prakar, the head of AI, kind of quoted recently, is he said, "Hey, let's say, how do you differentiate thinking versus reasoning, right? Now, if you were to say think, you would say, how I asked, how's the weather today? It would say, okay, the weather is maybe sunny or cloudy. It can know I need to do set of API calls and figure out. Versus reasoning again would be like, hey, because the weather is cloudy, you should probably take your umbrella with you, because you, in your calendar, you have a walk that is been planned. You say you're going on evening walk, I see that on your calendar, and the weather will be rainy, so you should probably take an umbrella, probably take your boots. So it is kind of doing the reasoning part there, and it's not just thinking. And that's where the systems are evolving. There are, as I said, there are two contrasting school of thoughts here. But if you go to the very right spectrum, where agents are fully autonomous, and is able to take the decision, but still probably have human on the loop. Say, for example, there's an agent which is trying to kind of listen to all possible error logs that's happening in the system, and kind of alerts saying that, hey, there is an issue here even before a human can identify. Or even better, based on the historical data, it's able to predict and say, hey, this system probably will fail here. May it be network bottleneck, may it be number of errors, or the UX is broken and stuff like that, right? So it could be any pattern that it can predict and say the system might fail here, and kind of does a prediction and says you could probably go and fix this. So that is where it gets interesting, where it's probably able to reason things and say, uh, there might be something that might go wrong here even before it goes wrong, right? That's kind of a prediction that an agent can do. Of course, when AGI happens, probably it'll replace itself That's an interesting space in itself. So let's keep an eye on the AGI space as well.
Cool. So, how do agent first systems fit into what developers are already using?
Yeah, so I would say that we are not going to replace everything by agent first systems, right? That would be a crazy bet to do. What I'm saying is we are kind of evolving, and this is kind of the north star where we are getting into. If it's a greenfield project, then it's a no-brainer. It's pretty easy to kind of design a system where agent is the first class citizen, and we know what we're designing for. Versus we have an existing product, and sometimes we also have the legacy baggage along with that product, and then we're trying to try to fit in the agent first paradigm. It involves a lot of mindful effort there, right? One in figuring out task based use cases, right, rather than just saying that, hey, I have my existing system, how do I make it agentic? I would rather say I would pick parts of it and say, hey, I have an use case which I feel an agent can help. Going back to, say, probably the commerce use case that we were talking, where the user is trying to shop something in a chat interface, right? You could see multiple agents acting in cohesion there, right? Like you can think of an agent which kind of starting from maintaining your catalog information, looking into the inventory, and looking into checkout, payment. So you can think of all of these domains in itself as agent, and they are communicating between each other, right? So it's a bit of an agent orchestration. And if we can look at from a very larger picture, PayPal as a company itself can be an agent, right? It can be a PayPal agent which can be used in any other agentic flows that the world is building, where they want PayPal not just for payment and fintech related activities, but also in terms of commerce, right? How can we use PayPal? And PayPal itself becomes an agent, which has a lot of agents within itself, and there is a lot of agent orchestration that's happening, right? Which goes back to kind of the traditional model too, again, in terms of, say, microservices, you can say agents. So you're not going to end up moving all of your existing product and code base to agent first paradigm, but it would be more of task based decisions that we're saying, hey, for this use case and for this task, basically an agent is apt, and we already have an agent which can be again be a greenfield or extracting pieces from the existing system and making it agent first, and then we kind of have these agents kind of collaborate between each other to make things happen. So I would say that that's how we should kind of evolve and experiment and see how it behaves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're already starting to touch on kind of some of the skills developers would find handy to use. It sounds like we're kind of shifting a little bit, evolving the ideation process. What new skills would you call out that would be really helpful for developers to have?
The one skill that consistently uh, humans should have is curiosity, right? So if you're curious, you'll start exploring things. You'll start looking into what's on bleeding edge and try to experiment. The skill I would say is get your hands dirty, right? So what I mean by that is pick something that's interesting, right? Say, for example, you found a free and open source model on Hugging Face, which is a vision model which can take an image and identify and classify the image, maybe, or probably you prompt the LLM with this image and say, hey, what are the colors that you see in this image? Can you give me a color palette out of this image? Just an example, right? Or you have an like an handwritten note, a very old note, or a prescription that you want to scan, or an X-ray that you want to pass into the LLM and kind of get an analysis just for the fun of it, right? So you would probably pick something that is easy to cook, maybe an hour or so you can explore on these and try to build something small, build it for fun, and then you can think of scaling and try to go deeper and try to understand how does this really work, like what does fine tuning mean? Can I take this free and open source model and fine tune? What does a data set mean? How do I train this model on a particular data set? How do I build a data set myself? How do I build a synthetic data set? Right. So you can go deeper and deeper into it. And so starting small, starting just to be curious and to see what this is where it all begins, and that's where you kind of get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I love that. I also love just the kind of in the spirit of building out in the open too. Like there's a lot of really great open source projects out there that you can find a lot of great resources. So remembering too that we're all kind of in the same boat together where we're all trying to figure things out and figure out what's best for our companies and the customers that we serve. So um yeah, take advantage of the resources, especially we have paypal.ai has a lot of really awesome resources, which we'll link below too, of course. So let's talk a little bit about debugging and trust. So how do you see debugging, testing, and trust in agent behavior evolve?
With LLM assistant coding, the amount of code that we are generating is tremendous, and that involves a lot of testing too. Again, you could ask the LLM to be the judge, write the test cases, make sure the test cases are passing and such. But we still need a human in the loop who is going to probably look into the PR that the agent made and kind of analyze based on their domain knowledge and expertise and the experience that they had on things that didn't go well on production and such. Right? They should probably do a review, and I would still think of it as an agentic system where you're having a conversation with the agent and saying that, hey, this is not what I expected, and this is where things should be fine tuned. um, the thing that has worked for me personally is I would start with a base project that I already know, especially for greenfield, right? Like I would start with a base project which has all the required components. Say for example, for front end, you pick React, you can create React app, and then you create a React app which has all the foundational aspects to it, and then you use an agent over it and say, hey, make these changes, add these flows, and then you see, okay, things are not working. You're kind of teaching the agent how to build exactly, like from idea to like translation to the code part. Like you're kind of even though it's an LLM assistant, you're also training the assistant on how you think, how you want the product to be written, right? So that mental model shift of not me just thinking and converting my thoughts into code, but thinking of how I would let the agent, make this a reality and how effective it can get. So it could also be involving giving it a lot of context, giving a set of rules, saying that, hey, here are the set of APIs and documentations. Here are a set of the MCP tools. These are the paradigms that I follow when I like bake code. And maybe even uh, there might be a repo of like multiple projects that you have worked on where you have handwritten beautiful code, and you say, this is how I think, this is how my functions look, so go learn from it and be a partner which is very close to my thought process. So you're kind of multiplying your mind into two, right? Then the agent is very much a reflection of you. So and the agent is thinking and behaving like you, and that's where I think it gets fun and better as well, right? Because you are kind of adding the predictability layer there, saying that the agent now behaves very much close to me. And wild example that I can quote is, I've been blogging for like 15 years now. I have like 400 plus articles. So I took those articles and trained a tiny model to kind of, learn my lingo and my grammar and the way I write articles and blogs. And then I asked the LLM to kind of go ahead and generate a content. It did a decent job. I was like, does it really sound like me, or do I sound like this, kind of a feeling? But it did a decent job. So I think, and then the philosophical question, right? Now, who is the one that who wrote this article? Was it the agent, or was it me? So that's kind of a fun paradigm. I think it might evolve into agents being set of personas, and it could be like a React expert as a persona. This agent just knows and understands how to build React apps, or it could be a data scientist, or it could be I'm just purely good at fine tuning models. So things like this, I believe agents will evolve into having their own persona. We would have a market of agents where I can subscribe and pick few agents, and they would start working for me. And probably every day wake up and see there are a lot of use case to solve, and what are the set of agents that I need to assign. I assign them, and there's a huge board where all the agents are working and letting me know what's working, what's not working, I am kind of being human on the loop and looking at all of this agent work. Maybe that's
Yeah.
that's a dream, but yeah, hopefully we'll get into a mixed mode, something very similar to this is what I strongly feel.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's also just even hearing you talk about your own journey and working through and learning how to work with agents and um it makes me think about like opportunities to even challenge your own assumptions. Like you're talking about, plugging your own work and then kind of being thoughtful or thinking through what you're getting back as results and kind of changing and tweaking. So again, that kind of like mental agility in the development, life cycle, I could imagine is key for sure.
Yeah, there was a paper which came out which said 95% of the LLM assistant code don't make it to production. It kind of fails. I would see that in another angle, saying that why is this? That's good. We are almost 95% like there. Like why did the 5% fail? I would like to look into the aspects on why that 5% failed. The research might be very limited to a small set of data set. I don't want to argue on that part, but I would see it in a better way, saying that if LLM assistants can get our code, if agents can get from idea to like prototype quickly, how quickly can we go to prototype to production again using agents, and what is that missing piece, right? What is that new pattern that should emerge there, is what I feel is agent first development again. That puts the loop back, saying that hey, if you start with agent first, maybe it gets better, right?
Yeah.
It's an hypothesis still. We need to kind of
Yeah.
do some research here and see how it behaves.
Yeah, it's a really great question too, like as you're trying to build and go through these cycles too. Like so, when you're thinking through PayPal and the work that you're doing here, why are we investing in agent first systems?
PayPal is not just a payments company, right? It is definitely commerce. We have merchants and we have consumers and millions of them. And we are one of the very few companies who have this power of kind of connecting the merchant and consumers in an agentic fashion, right? That kind of solves a lot of use cases out there. And thinking from the very left side again, on where you have the yellow button on the websites where people used to click and they kind of trust that a source. I know PayPal. I have a PayPal account. I've been using it for decades. Now I'm going to use PayPal and check out to the very right, whereas there is autonomous system which can help you buy something like even without you opening your wallet or logging, and there's like zero friction. And think of this PayPal as an agent which is sitting in multiple commerce systems, multiple chat interfaces, and uh, assistants, and that would be amazing. And having an agent first design will make it definitely better, not just for the PayPal ecosystem, but the overall ecosystem. Just yesterday, AP2 got released. We also had A2A from Google and AP2 also from Google, where probably it would be more like PayPal, as I mentioned, would be an agent saying that, hey, I'm an agent and here's my agent card. These are my expertise. These are the things that I can bring. And there's an other agent which wants PayPal's expertise, may it be in commerce, payments, risk, compliance, dispute, and all of it, right? So this agent would call PayPal agent, and we take care of the rest of it for the any workflow that the entire world is trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And at PayPal, we're always thinking about the customer. And I think building for this future only is going to enhance our customers and merchants' experience. So, it's great to start now so we can really offer that benefit to our customers and users.
Absolutely, and we are sitting on data which is historical, and we have a lot of data from both merchants and consumers, which can be turned into like, yes, data sources. We need data sets which can be trained, which can provide insights, which can make life better both for merchants as well as consumers. May it be in their commerce journey, or may it be like merchant who want to kind of improve their profit margin or get insights on how their products are selling, and multiple such use cases, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like, we talked about the opportunities of agent first development. Let's talk a little bit about some of the maybe challenges you're seeing. What are some of the biggest challenges and risks that you see with agent first development?
Yeah, the challenges I would say is the pace at which everything is evolving here. It's an interesting challenge to have, right? I would not say it's like a showstopper, but it's how agile and how fast can you evolve to this pace is where it gets interesting, right? So each day there is a new model that's popping up with a different capability, and maybe in like a month of span there are like multiple protocols that are popping up, and there are new patterns that are coming in. So you should be agile enough to build your systems in such a way that you can plug and play all of these protocols and don't get rigid and get stick to a particular framework or a particular pattern under a particular protocol, right? You should have them as peripherals, but things from the first principles, and have your agent agnostic of all of this, but can plug and play to any of these protocols in the system, and have your core or the heart of your agent to know exactly what it is supposed to do, and then all of these are peripherals.
So when we're looking to kind of future vision, what do you see could an agent first PayPal look like maybe in the next 3 to 5 years? We kind of touched on this with our last guest, Nixon, who's a product manager here at PayPal, but I'd love to hear your perspective, since you're more in the weeds as an engineering lead. What do you think?
Yeah. So as we touched upon a few points here, uh, anyone who is following this space closely could make a bet that A to A or agent to agent communication, agent orchestrations, and systems like that will evolve more. And PayPal could be that agent which can plug in for your commerce, plug in for your payment, risk compliance, dispute, and all of these, which would just come in and take all the overload that another agent is trying to solve, and take it from there, and has the trust and the brand, and it can make the magic happen, right? So I would think of it as I said, PayPal, the entire offering itself as an agent that can fit into any of the workflows that anyone out there in the wild is trying to solve, right? It should be so seamless that you have a PayPal account, you don't have a PayPal account, you're a PayPal merchant, you're not a PayPal merchant. All of this should be kind of easily handled by an agent which can solve both commerce and payments.
Yeah, I think thinking back also to what Nixon's points were, I feel like this is a good invitation for our listeners to maybe hear what Nixon had to say and then compare and contrast a little bit. But I love your perspective. And I think maybe one last question here is what's one thing that you would want developers to remember from today's interview?
One thing that developers need to remember, um, be curious and burn your fingers. Now, be curious and get your hands dirty, right?
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. Great. So today we explored how AI agents are changing the game for developers, especially in fintech and payments. We dove into how agent first development is evolving, the software lifecycle, and what skills developers need in order to adapt to this evolution. Also, we talked about the opportunities and some of the challenges that we're seeing here at PayPal. If you'd like to learn more, we encourage you to check out paypal.ai. There's lots of great resources there. And also, Hemant mentioned a few resources throughout this talk that we'll link to below in the chat. A few great spots to go check out kind of learning out in the open, lots of great open source projects and things you can read and dive into. So I encourage you to reach out to either of us. You can drop your question and comments in the description in the chat, or we can always reach out to us on LinkedIn. So, Hema, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to hear your perspective, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for another episode of Dev Talks. Take care, everyone.